So I thought today's class would be a good time for us to circle back to look at the foundation of our spiritual practice, of our spiritual path, which is our meditation practice. The path that we're on, if you're coming to these classes, includes meditation. And I don't know if you could do it without meditation. It would take a really long time. So I want to make sure we're all really clear on why we're meditating, what's happening when we're meditating, and how we're doing our meditation practice as well. And in the why, I think in the beginning, so many of us come to meditation because we're stressed out. We know that our thoughts are we're worried, we're judging, we're comparing, we're anxious, we're unhappy, and we feel that sense of being really coiled up inside, like always ready to strike. And we don't want to be that way anymore. So when we're meditating, and if we're doing, say, a breath meditation, where we're concentrating our attention on the breath, we know what happens in the beginning of the meditation, right? We have our attention on the breath, and then our mind keeps wandering to our thoughts. So we wander off with our thoughts until we remember we're supposed to be meditating, and then we bring our attention back to the breath. We think, oh, that's good, back to the breath. And we're back to the thoughts again, and then we're back to the breath. We're back to the thoughts, and it's a little bit of ping pong. But every time we pull our attention away from our thoughts back to our breath, there is a letting go of the fears, of the anxieties, of our worries, of the judging, of the comparing, of the resentment. And in each little bit of letting go, and as the space between each thought becomes a little bit greater, that uncoiling starts to come apart. And we start to feel more calm, and we feel more relaxed. And our nervous system is more balanced. It's not just a subjective feeling. Your heart rate is decreasing. Your blood pressure is coming down. The tension in your muscles is decreasing. The fear center in your brain, your amygdala, deep in your limbic part of your brain, is the activity is being reduced. And your prefrontal cortex, this part of your brain behind your forehead, the executive brain, where we manage emotions, reason, focus, attention, rational thinking, it becomes more active. And so through all of these processes that are happening, not only do we feel more safe, our mind, we're more relaxed, we're more calm, our body, our brain says we're safe. We're okay. There's nothing to fear right now. Everything is good. So when we go about our day after meditating, with that greater sense of space, that greater sense of peace inside, we have more time to respond. We have more time to pause when things are happening in our day. So when when we find out our flight's been canceled, instead of being all coiled up, ready to react like most people are, because this is how most people walk around all day, right? Instead of being ready to flip out, we have that pause, we have that breath. And we realize, yeah, flights do get canceled. Apparently, these days, a lot more than ever before. And we realize it's not just me that's inconvenienced, it's everyone that's inconvenienced. And I can take a breath, and I can be present, and I can be thoughtful in this moment. And I feel better when I do that. And if we're in the grocery store and the cashier is kind of rude to us or just not acknowledging us in some way, we're just feeling like we're not kind of getting the recognition we deserve. We weren't greeted in the way we should be. We can recognize in that moment, we can have that pause and respond and think, they're probably just having a tough day. It's nothing personal. It's never personal. I don't have to overreact here and start spinning my head about what this person's doing. I can take a breath. I can be present. and I will feel better for it. So every time that we do this, that we take a pause and we respond in a different way, a more thoughtful way, a more kind way, a more compassionate, wise way, what we are doing is taking the taking the wisdom teachings that we are studying here each week, and we are taking them from an intellectual understanding down into a place of knowing, of really knowing these teachings to be true, and knowing them in a way that, or in the same way, that if we were to put our hand on a hot stove, it would hurt. That we would know, if I overreact in this situation, it will hurt. That we start to see it's not the situation that's causing my suffering, it's the way I'm responding to it, or more likely the way I'm reacting to it. It's not that that person insulted me. That's not the problem. It's that I can't stop repeating it in my head. That's what's causing the searing pain. Right? It's not that person has more than me. That's the problem. It's that I'm comparing myself to them. That's where the pain is coming from. It's not that that person over there is doing something they shouldn't be doing. That's not the problem. It's that I'm judging them. That's where the pain is coming from. So it really helps us see very clearly where the pain is coming from. It's not our external situation, our external conditions, which are always changing. Right? It slows us down enough to really see that cycle of suffering that we keep repeating day after day. We say we want happiness, and yet we keep doing the same things over and over again. And we wonder, why am I still so unhappy? Because we keep repeating the same cycles. So it helps us to see our role in the suffering, what all of the great sages have told us. We're the ones causing our suffering. It's not the other person, it's not the situation, it's not the canceled flight. We are the ones causing our own suffering. Because we're lost in our thoughts. We keep listening to our ego. We are reacting to whatever our ego is telling us to do. And it's giving us some pretty bad advice. It's the worst life coach ever. And yet we keep listening to it as though it's telling us all the good things we should be doing. So we start to see there's no reason to listen to this voice anymore. It keeps giving me bad advice. And the more that we meditate and we slow down, it gives us that opportunity to slow down so that we do respond instead of react. And we get the evidence ourselves. And we go, that was better. When I didn't listen to that voice that says, no, you should insult them back, or you should keep thinking about this, or you should send them an email right now, instead of reacting to that voice, of being able to slow down, to breathe, to come back into the present moment and say, oh no, I don't need to react to this voice because you've given me a lot of really bad advice and I'm not taking that advice anymore. So it really helps us to slow things down, to make the changes that we need to be making. And so while this is a very abbreviated class on meditation, because we've all been meditating here for quite a while, even a couple of you that I know are a little newer, you've been meditating enough. But I do want to just remind us why it is so important for us to be meditating regularly, to have a regular practice, and to make sure that we are doing our meditation practice correctly. That we're not just kind of checking it off and going, yeah, I did it, when maybe we could have been doing some things a little bit differently. So I want to just talk a little bit about the logistics of our meditation practice. Ideally, we are meditating twice a day. Ideally, 20 minutes each time. You can meditate more, absolutely. But if you're meditating twice a day, 20 minutes each time, that is a great practice. And yet, I also recognize not everyone can do it twice a day. And we do have to make this work. Everyone has different schedules. So we do have to make it work for us. But if you can only meditate once a day, make sure it is your morning meditation. That's the one that is most important. So when you get up in the morning, try to get your meditation done within the first 30 minutes. Don't let anything go beyond that. I mean, wake up, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, have some water, maybe do a little yoga, a little stretching before you sit, just to become a little bit more alert. But you don't want to leave it much longer than that, because if you do, we know what happens. You know, someone called the office or your child or something happened, and then it's like 10 o'clock, you're like, oh, I still haven't meditated. And now you're stressed because you haven't meditated either. Well, you're stressed because you haven't meditated, and you're stressed because now you want to get your meditation in. So it actually doubles our stress. So we don't want that. And we do want to meditate very early because we want the benefits. We want that calm feeling. We want that peaceful feeling. We want that ability to slow down and respond and to have that pause. So we want to be able to have the benefits of our meditation practice. So we want to do it early. And as I said, we want to get out of bed to meditate. We don't want to meditate in bed. And I know, and I've done this in the past as well. So you think, oh yeah, I'm meditating, you know, and you set the little timer and you set it there and you just lay back and you're like, oh, this is nice and comfy. Yeah, it's kind of just like sleeping in. So it's kind of just like a little daydream. And yet we kind of convince ourselves to like, no, I meditated. Probably not as well as you could have. So get out of bed, unless you have a medical condition that you really can't. But I see everyone here sitting up, and for those of you that don't have your screens on, I know you can. So get out of bed, go, and if you're sitting in a chair, and most people just sit in a chair these days, perfectly fine. Don't make sure that your legs are uncrossed, feet firmly planted on the ground, your arms, just by your side, hands, palms up or down. What is important there is that your back is straight, because we do want to be alert for our practice. So straight back, tuck your chin just slightly. I meditate with eyes closed. I teach with eyes closed, but lots of traditions meditate with their eyes open. Just have your eyes cast down at a 45-degree angle, just very soft, unfocused gaze. If is something that you prefer to meditate that way, totally fine. And then I also just wanted to discuss guided meditations versus using a timer. And while I'm all in favor of guided meditations, I think they are super, super helpful. Not just in the beginning of our practice. You can get into some more complicated kind of tantric yoga practices that are very, they can be 2 hours long, and it can be really helpful to have the guiding part alongside of it. But we also want to know how to meditate without someone guiding us as well. So this is just a question for you to answer yourself. If you're doing guided meditations every day, just try to mix it up occasionally with a non-guided meditation to make sure that you can do it on your own, that we can take the training wheels off the bicycle, and that you are okay without the app, or without the guided meditations, because you might find yourself somewhere where you don't have an internet connection or your phone's lost. And we don't want that to be the reason you can't meditate. And yet, I also do want to encourage, if you are doing a non-guided meditation, to use a meditation timer app, not to use the alarm that's on your phone. Because how you come out of the meditation makes a big difference about how you are able to take that peaceful feeling with you out into your day, so that you can pause and respond and be more present and more thoughtful. And if you come out with a jarring alarm and you've got to turn it off, you've got to hop up to turn it off, or even just grab it to turn it off, it kind of breaks that continuity. So use a timer app. So I recommend Insight Timer. I was recommending it long before I was on there as a teacher, but they have a great app. It's a free app. But there's all sorts of meditation apps that you can get for free that has a timer. But the other benefit of it is that when you set a time, if you're going to meditate for 20 minutes, you don't get up until that bell has gone off, unless the house is on fire. But other than that, you do not get up. And whereas people will say, oh, I'm going to meditate for 15 or 20 minutes. I'm just going to sit for as long as I want to sit. Or I'm really good at gauging. I know when my 15 or 20 minutes is up. The problem with that is that you may get to 18 minutes and think, yeah, okay, I'm good, I'm done. That feels good. But if you were relying on the timer, you would now know, oh, it's my ego that's starting to direct me to do something else. And we want to stop being a slave to our ego. So it has a really subtle way of sneaking in there and saying, no, you've done enough. You're great, Megan, go on, you're good, And so this way, when you get to that 18 minutes, and yeah, maybe you do want to get up. You have had enough, but the bell hasn't gone off. So you're going to sit there. And you are really doing something in that moment. You are resisting your ego saying, this isn't working anymore. We need to get over there. We need to get to the next thing. Your happiness is over there. You're not listening to it. And we want to not listen to it, not just in our meditation, but outside of our meditation. So use a timer app, a meditation timer app. And if you have a day where you're not able to do the 20 minutes, that's okay. And you want to set it for 10 minutes, that's fine. Just set it for the time, whatever that time is, and do that time. And I know that is a little contradictory to what I also say sometimes, where I'll tell people, and this still applies though. If you really are like, you've convinced yourself you're not going to meditate, and my little way of getting us to do it when we don't want to is to say, just do 1 minute. Just go and sit for 1 minute. So you set your timer, maybe your warm-up is for 1 minute, but the total time is for 10 or 20 minutes. And the idea behind that is just to get you to the mat, because that's the hardest part, or get you on the chair. And once you're there, you're into that 1 minute, usually it's like, oh, okay, now I can sit for a little bit longer. But the hardest part is getting ourselves there. So that still applies. And if it is, and I'm still being true to what I've said before, if you want to get up after that 1 minute, okay. But the benefit is that you've kept the continuity of your practice going as well. So you haven't stopped one day now. So instead of not meditating that day, and then the next day you're like, I think I'll take 2 days off. And then I think I'll take 3 days off. And then it's like, oh God, what happened? Where did my practice go? I stopped meditating. So this way we do keep the continuity. So our meditation practice is the foundation of our spiritual practice on this path. It is what takes these teachings from our intellectual understanding down into our place of knowing. So we know when we're burning ourselves. It's not what's happening out there. Let's point the finger back at ourselves. What am I doing to cause my suffering? What can I let go of in this moment? How am I not seeing things clearly? And notice how much better you feel when you do that. And then keep doing that. Notice the suffering. Turn the finger around back inwards. What am I resisting here? What am I pushing back on? What am I chasing? What do I want to be different in this situation? And how can I accept this? And by accepting it, allowing my suffering to fall away and feel good and be happy.